Nobody starts at the finish line. You have to start somewhere. In order for you to get to where you're going, to meet that destination, you can't think that you're going to get there instantly.
Welcome to another episode of the Mr. Mindful Minute podcast, where we touch on different things, on different topics, on how we could go from a nothing place to a something place. And today we have a special guest. I am going to let her introduce who she is because who can explain it better than she can? So tell the people who you are.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am Dr. Shalay Williams, or Dr. Shalay, or Dr. S, as you'll see in my little outro. I am currently an associate professor of social work, but I do a lot of other things as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, so I won't spend too much time on that. But just thank you again for this opportunity to be on the Mr. Mindful Minute podcast. I'm so excited.
Oh man, listen, I appreciate it. I see a lot of things that you're doing. I have a question.
Yeah.
Where did you get started with the idea to do talk about your story? Where did that come from?
You know what? It's kind of happenstance. I honestly really can't even pinpoint it. I am, I feel like I'm the type of person that I like to share my story with other people. I like to help other people share their story. And I think just like a year or so ago, I just decided to be really intentional about what that looks like. What does that mean? And so just praying about it, and God was like, dropping nuggets you didn't know you needed. So I'm like, okay, let's go with that. And actually, if I really reflect and think back on it, I had a friend who challenged me actually to start doing videos. And I was like, that's not me. I'm a behind the scenes kind of person. I can't really do that. And so just gradually I would just record the videos and then maybe upload them. And now, if somebody asks to do a live, I'm like, bet, let's do it. What we doing? So it's just been a gradual journey of getting comfortable with myself and then putting it out there for other people to read or see or hear about.
Yeah, I mean, when I came across it, I was like, dropping nuggets you ain't know you be. I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. And the power, that you are helping people to see the power in their story, like what they've been through, and
Yes.
being comfortable enough to express that because it is that transparency that helps us to be more confident in who we are because we're not so worried about people knowing what we have been through.
Right. Right. That's it. And that's the thing. Like so many of us have lived life and we get to the other side or what we think is the other side. And then we either become shamed or we just don't want people to know that part. But I'm like, for me, I wish somebody had told me their story. Like I wish somebody had been like, nah, boo, don't do that. Or don't go there, or try it like this, so I wouldn't have made certain mistakes that I made in my life. And so that's how I look at it: is if I can help somebody kind of get through their journey with a little less drama than I've had, then I'm all about it.
Look, the nuggets that you ain't know you need. So, all right, so let me ask you this question:
Okay.
what got you started on your journey of being a doctor? And is it like Dr. Dre? He ain't actually a doctor, but he's still called the doctor. You know what I'm saying?
I am an actual doctor, not an MD. So I can't do surgery. I can't do physical surgery. But I am a doctor. I have a PhD in social work. And so that in and of itself, all of the things I feel like a lot of things in my life are just like I happen upon them. I like fall into them. It was never my intention to get a doctorate degree. I was perfectly happy with my social work degree. I have a master's in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I just want to just mention that for a second, because the things I talk about, like I know from work and experience and training. So I know a lot of people have a lot of different skill sets. So I just want to put that out there. I know a little bit. And so I was good with that. I was good with, my license. I was in private practice. And just eventually I was like, I want to do something different. And I have an aunt who has a PhD. I have a cousin who has a PhD. And they both were like, go get your PhD. And I was like, I don't know. But I applied, and I'm the philosophy, if it's the Lord's will, he'll make a way, and he allowed me to get in. And that's how that happened.
Look at that. How
Right.
it just happened, right? But
It just
it seems
happened.
like the PhD running the family. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, I told you I'm a nerd, so I got it honest. I got it honest for real.
Yeah. Look, and that's beautiful that you're doing it, because a lot of people kind of. I just think that a lot of people focus on. I'm not going to say the right things or the wrong things. We as people, we just center a lot of attention on certain aspects, and one of those
Mm-hmm.
aspects is finances.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not enough attention focused on our mental and our emotional. Now we know that there's a lot of people that focuses on physical, like being physically fit or healthy,
Right.
but it's almost like it's overlooked how much people focusing on their mental and their emotional, and now especially with COVID, it exposed itself.
Mm-hmm.
So people like yourself that's doing what you're doing, it is appreciated and it's valued.
Well,
So
thank
thank
you.
you. All right, so okay. What is something I just want to, I want to kind of get this question out of the way, right? Because I'll be looking at some of your, I look at some of your videos. I'll be like, I wonder if she ever asked herself, what would she say to her younger self? So I want to ask you this question. What's something that you would actually say to your younger self?
Oh my gosh. How much time we got? Like, what did I say to my younger self? Well, honestly, I would start off with, you are beautiful. And I'm sure, people who will watch this eventually, some of them at least can relate. As a, brown girl, darker skinned girl, I don't recall um being told that I was pretty or attractive or, anything like that. It's the opposite. It was, derogatory names and just talked down about. Um, and so that definitely gave me a complex about my complexion, about my appearance, and I struggled with that for a very long time. I probably didn't really kind of come into myself until I was in college. So I would definitely tell my younger self that you are beautiful, like, and no caveats. People say stuff like, "Oh, you're pretty to be a dark skinned girl," or no, you're just pretty, you're just beautiful, you're just gorgeous. So I would tell myself that, and I would also tell my younger self um, that just who you are in general is okay. Like, it's okay to be smart. Um, it's okay to not like the things that everybody else likes or want to do the things that everybody else does. Like, that's okay. It's okay to create your own identity, um, even if people don't always understand that. So I think those are probably the two major things that I would tell my younger self.
All right. Okay. Okay. Because I just think that, we all, our experiences that we have in life. And, I'm recently developing the idea or the perspective of removing what I think is good or what I think is bad, because stuff that I thought was good for
Mhm.
me ended up turning bad for me. And stuff that I thought was bad for me ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I
Mhm.
just learned to remove that aspect, right? And just say this was an experience. And from this experience, I'm going to make it work out for me. That's what I'm choosing to do,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, what you're saying, a lot of the stuff that you say on your social media platform, dropping these gems and, telling your story and, you even just saying, letting yourself know that you're enough, right? Reaffirming these things to ourselves, reassuring ourselves, because when we don't reassure ourselves, we are now looking for other people to reassure us.
Right. Exactly.
And it doesn't matter how much somebody else reassures you. If you don't reassure you, it's not going to matter. You can't receive something that from anybody else that you don't receive from your own self.
Right.
So, all right. So, what is some of your goals that you have for everything that you do with letting people talk about their story? Because it's mainly I see it's all about, hey, sister, tell your story, right?
Right.
Sister, tell your story. So, what are you looking to get from that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't forgot that you asked about brothers. I haven't forgot about that though. So my goal is always, so my hashtag is be your best you. So I just want to help navigate, encourage, support um women and men to be your best you, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. Um to do that. And I feel like as the sister sharing intimate stories that achieve healing, like with that, I feel like so often, like we just shared, we either keep it to ourselves or we feel ashamed about it. And when we keep it to ourselves and we feel shame or guilt or condemnation about it, that's just another way for the enemy to come in and cause us to be depressed and have anxiety and all of these things. And so I'm like, hey, take that power away from the enemy. Share your story, however, crazy or ratchet or whatever it might be. Share it. So you're going to bring healing to yourself by being open and honest and transparent about it. And you're going to potentially bring healing to somebody else, because so often when we're going through these things, we're thinking, I'm the only one that's dealing with this. I'm the only one that's experiencing it. Nobody else can understand. And you talk to certain people and they actually open up about their life. You're like, what? You too? Dang. And then you have this whole community and this conversation about, how do we get past this? How did you do it? Let's create some type of support group or sisterhood or brotherhood. Um, to move past this. So really my ultimate goal is just for people to be healthy. Like you said, not only physically or financially, but spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, all of that.
That's beautiful, because when we start now, because you're talking about normalizing your experiences in life, and
Mm-hmm.
once we start normalizing our experiences in life, and we don't condemn, we don't judge, and like you're saying, that's the enemy now is going to have an opportunity to make it even worse, or make you
Mm-hmm.
feel worse than how you already do, because that experience, and it kind of touches back on it, that experience, we now say this happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And with that it happened to me mindset, it keeps us with a victim mindset. And you
Mm-hmm.
can't benefit from being victimized. But when we shift it and say, this happened for me, and because this happened for me, this is why I am stronger now. This is why I'm more
Right.
careful. This is why I pay attention. But had that not happened for me, and then it's not minimizing or downplaying anything anybody has been through, but it's us, you're saying it, it's us reclaiming our power.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. I love that.
That's it. And the Bible says we are overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. I mean, it's scriptural, it's Bible. That we have to tell this story, whatever that story is, no matter how unattractive it may feel, how hurtful or painful it may feel. It takes a little bit of the sting out of it when you can share it with somebody, in my opinion.
Okay, so all right. Now, obviously, that's not easy, right?
Right.
What is a tip that you would give somebody to kind of like personal experience? Like, what got you to be at this place where you're more comfortable of expressing, your experiences in life?
Yeah, it's definitely, you're right. It's totally not easy. And I commend any and everybody who gets to the place where they can, candidly share their story. It's just something you practice, so you do it in little increments. Maybe you tell somebody you struggle with something you consider small. Maybe you eventually tell somebody something a little larger, and then you get to the point where you're like, hey, what you want to know? I'm an open book. For me, I think it came gradually through when I used to minister at church and do like women's groups and those kind of things. And when some people would be like, some ladies would be like, oh my gosh, I did X, Y, and Z. I'm such a bad person. And I'm like, let me tell you something. Let me tell you about my life. And not, like you said, not taken away from it or anything like that. But like, again, you're not the only person to do that. And if I'm honest and I tell you about what I've experienced, then again, you don't feel alone. You don't feel like it's only you. You don't necessarily feel that same level of guilt and condemnation. And so just over time, I got to the point where I'm like you said, it happened for me, right? It happened for me to be in a place where I can empathize and understand when somebody else comes to me and shares that same struggle, that same story. I got you, boo. Been there, done that. Bro could write 10 books about it.
Okay, so it sounds like you're talking about being more supportive to yourself, and so now
Mm-hmm.
you in turn being supportive to other people because all right, now now hold on now because you said, tell a little something, tell a little something, and the society that we live in, we want to make sure everything is either private or secretive. It is a very thin line between private and secretive now.
Right,
So which, how do we differentiate between the two?
right. So I am not suggesting that somebody, make a video or get on Facebook and be like, tell every little thing that they did. That is not what I am encouraging at all. Not unless they feel totally led to. Um, but I do think that there are places and avenues to share your story in safe spaces. So whether it's a support group, whether it's the women's group at your church, whether it's AA or NA, there are places where we can start to share our story in a way um, that we're not going to be judged, we're not going to be further condemned. And as you do it in those spaces and start to see, okay, I shared a little bit, I took a little bit of weight off, I feel a little bit lighter, you get to that place of getting more and more comfortable in sharing it in other circumstances. Now, for me, I'm cool with social media. It's probably an age thing too, because I'm like, I don't have nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? So I'll put it out there. But yeah, so I think that's what I'm suggesting is to start gradually. And even like for me with the sister idea, it's completely anonymous. So when ladies
Mm.
click the link and go to the website, they don't have to give any identifying information. I don't have a name, I don't have an email address, I don't have a social media handle, none of that. It's completely confidential and anonymous for that very reason that not everybody is at a place where they want to be like, hey, my name is Shalay and I was a fornicator, or you know what I'm saying? They might not be there yet. And so I want to respect that not everybody is in that place and they still have a story to tell.
All right. So, what is that site? Because you're talking about the power of transparency,
Mm-hmm.
and when we tap into this power of transparency, it helps us to be able to navigate more comfortably with self. No matter what
Right.
environment we're in, no matter who we're around, we're like, well, I'm comfortable about expressing these things about myself. So it's almost like, I remember seeing years ago the movie 8 Mile, and
Mhm.
Eminem expressed all this information about himself, and he was like, all right, now tell the people something they don't know about me. And so it gives
Mhm.
you a level of power because now you can't use something against me that I already expressed
Right.
about.
Right.
Where can people go where so they can actually be more comfortable about it's anonymous because you say express it, so that's a good way to get started. What's the website that people could go to express information that they want to put out
Yeah, so they can go get to my link a couple of ways. So they can either go to the website, which is aboutfacecollaborative.com, or they can go to my link tree, which is linktree/Dr. Shalay, so DrShalai. So if they go to either one of those ways, they'll see the tab for sister. Just click on that and it takes them straight to the site.
there? Oh man, that is amazing. That is awesome because it's really helping people to reclaim their power because we always give out energy. Everything
Mhm.
our everyday life is requiring of energy. But what do
Right.
we do to reclaim our power, right? And so if we
Mhm.
don't, if by doing this helps us to keep our power, then we'll have more energy to continue to give out through areas of our life. Awesome,
Right.
awesome,
Love.
awesome. I love it. I love it. All right, so what's one step that you would say that you've taken, right? What's one step that you have taken to overcome that initial fear of expressing yourself?
That's good. There are memes going around that say "do it afraid," right? So I think a lot of times we think we have to be completely comfortable or completely put together or completely, articulate or know how to, do all the platforms and social media and the cameras and stuff. And it doesn't take all that. If I look back at the very first video I did, like I was fumbling and messing up and I didn't know, but I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I have to push myself out of my comfort zone into something different because obviously this is what the Lord is having me to do. So I think if I gave one piece of advice or one step, it's just do it afraid, do it unprepared, do it not fully knowing what the outcome is going to be, but just do it. Just do it and see what happens.
Mm. So remove the hat of perfectionism. When we stop,
Yes.
when we
Yes.
stop saying, "Oh, it has to be like this." This is in my because really that comes from the idea that we have in our head of what it should look like. And so
Mm-hmm.
once we remove that idea of what we think it should look like and actually do it, now how it's supposed to be is how it actually is supposed to be. And it could end up being a lot better than we think.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. When I was working on my PhD, one of the things that upperclassmen or people who are further along in the program would say to me is a good paper is a done paper. They were like, just write it, just get
Mm,
it done. And I think that's the same kind of thing. Like, a good post is a done post. A good video is a done video. It might not be perfect. You might have to edit it, or maybe don't, because maybe somebody needs to see you stumble and fumble, and that gives them the courage to try it too. So yeah.
okay. All right. All right. So because I'm looking here, it says when you talk about the aspect of mental health, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
as far as the realms of mental health go, what have you noticed mental health has a becomes a barrier for us not being expressive?
Mm-hmm. There is so much to unpack when we talk about mental health. I love the fact that now, and by now I mean like 2021, Black folks especially are kind of normalizing this concept of, mental health, mental wellness, um, taking away the stigma of going to see a therapist, because we have been so bound. We have been so bound by this philosophy that we have to be either the strong Black woman, or for men, this concept of like John Henryism, where you just keep pushing, you just keep going, you just keep plowing. And we're dying, like literally dying, trying to hold it all together because we can't. We're not physically or spiritually or mentally able to handle that. Now we can fake it for a long time, but we don't really have it together. And so thinking that we do have it together, like that's the barrier. Thinking that we have it together and thinking that we can't be vulnerable to say, I'm tired, I'm stressed out, I don't want to do it, I don't like it, I need a break. Like it's becoming okay to say those things. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Now, you just blew my mind with the John Henry, right? Because when I think about
Right.
it, I'm like, man, it automatically makes me say, man, John Henry building that thing, and he's going against something that was not natural, that was
Right.
mechanical, to end up losing his life at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, as you said, we have this stigma to where we have to fake it, as they say in some movies, fake it until you make it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like you fake it so long, that's not natural to fake it. And
Right.
there's going to be a point that catches up to you where I'm not even going to say you physically die, but emotionally you're dying. Mentally you're
Mm-hmm.
dying because you are faking it so long, you don't even know how to be you. You don't even
Right.
know that it's okay to be you. You don't even know that it's nothing wrong with transparency of self, but you were
Mm-hmm.
conditioned from society of faking it so long that you just like, I'm just too afraid to be authentic. I'm too
Mm-hmm.
afraid to be myself. And so, as you're saying, really looking at the John Henry mind, yo, that was a crazy look. You picked nuggets you didn't know you needed. You nuggets you didn't know you needed. I like that. I definitely now that brings me to this question because I know you
Mm-hmm.
got a book. I know you have a book. What is your book about?
So my book is actually a devotional journal. It's called a Rise Devotional Journal, and the original one is a year long, so it's 52 weeks. And the premise behind it is, at least for me, when I wrote it, I struggle sometimes with doing things daily, and that perfectionism and all that kind of stuff. And if I fall off for a day or two, then I'm feeling bad. I feel like I'm not saved enough. Going to hell, all this stuff. And so I was like, well, let me write something that you can do by the week. So if you look at it on Monday and you don't get back to it till Thursday, you good. Like it's no pressure. So each week is a scripture, and then it's kind of some prompts or questions to think about, and some lined pages to write, um, what the Lord gives you in your prayer time, or questions you might have, or things you think about, and you can do that, for 52 weeks. Recently, probably right as 2020 was coming to an end, I decided, well, you know what? I wrote the first one for me with my personality in mind. But some people may be daily. Some people may like doing something, every day for a few days. And so I tweaked it. And I also have a part one and a part two. And those two are 28 days. So that's for those people who, they can hold it together for a month. Same format, scripture, prompts, place to write.
Okay, so what I hear is really helping. to be spiritually recalibrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your first book, all right, you're recalibrating, and all right, I got this. Now I don't have to stick to this format because I have more time. I got this scripture, and then I can say what I got from it, meditate on it, and then kind of carry me over like throughout the week,
Right.
for that spiritual recalibration. And so with your second book, journal, it's more, it's kind of, I guess, it geared depending on the individual because now you have each day you can be intentional. So almost like,
Right.
okay, I can hit the reset button every single day. Spiritually, I need to hit the reset
Mm-hmm.
button every single day. This is okay, I did this. Okay, I know me and what I'm trying to focus on and what I'm trying to work on. All right, let me do this today. Boom. It gives
Mm-hmm.
me something to be intentional about, and now I can write it down because you visualizing it is going to help you. And that's the beautiful thing about us writing down a lot of stuff. And I like how you put that in your book. You put that in there, uh, what you took from it, because sometimes we'll read the scriptures and we'll pray and we'll think about it, but we don't necessarily write down what it meant to us at that moment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're an avid reader of the Bible and you say you've read the Bible, through and through, and you constantly read it through and through. Well, what you got from it a year ago, you read that same scripture today, is going to apply to you differently. So I like
Exactly.
how you did that. I like how you did that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And that was my other thing too. Like if I was reading or doing, some type of study, like I would have my Bible, like so the Bible, I would have somebody's devotional, I would have a journal, and I'm like, hey, this is a whole bunch of stuff to try to do this. And so that was my attempt to combine all of those things. So you have one book that has the scripture, it has the prompts, and it has a place to write all in one. So, ladies stick it in their purse, their bag, and it's for guys too, because like you said, a lot of times it's like my stuff is geared towards women, but the devotional is for men as well. It's just another way to supplement, like how you said that spiritual recalibration. Um, so yeah, however you do that, if you are a daily person, if you prefer weekly, I got you covered.
Nice, nice, and it's good. That is something that you could take along because you could be feeling something, right now, but then when you leave and you going throughout your day and you having a moment, right? So to say, we
Right.
you know we have our moments. We ain't perfect, and no matter what your moment
Right.
is, you have your moment, and you might need to get that reset button right now. And so let me take a look at what
That's
I was. All right, let me reset real quick
right.
because I was having a moment now. Now I don't know. Let me get myself together.
I know.
All right, that's good. Now, I just want. Where did you get the idea to actually do that, though?
It literally everything I do, and this is gonna sound so churchy, but it's true. Every idea is God given. And He gave me that idea probably, I don't even know, 12. No, it's been longer than that. Probably like 15 years ago. Um, and, and even like the sister idea, he probably gave me that 20 years ago. And it seems like it was for such a time as this, because now we have these platforms where it makes sense. Like before, when I tried to do it, it wasn't, social media wasn't what it is now. So it was via email and random little things. It's just really complicated to do, and now it's with such ease. But every idea, every post, every video is straight from God, literally.
Mm, that's listen. That's good, right? You can't
Yeah.
go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with that, right? And so,
Right.
all right. So looking at, you talked about a lot of transparency and us being more comfortable with, speaking, not necessarily just speaking to other people, speaking to ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what your book also helps you to do. It helps you to speak to yourself a certain way. right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, where does that actually come in lines in, say, relationships with people? And but we can break this down, meaning relationships with, say, non-family, and then
Mm-hmm.
relationships with, like, say, spouse,
Mm-hmm.
and then with family.
Ooh, okay. So we got family, spouse, and then non-family,
Right.
and how all this plays a part. Well, here's the thing. When I think about your earlier question about what would I tell my younger self, I think part of the reason why telling your story, sharing your story, and even if you keep it to yourself and you just journal it, I think part of why that's so important is that healing. So many of us have experienced traumatic situations that we haven't fully labeled as traumatic, and so we haven't fully dealt with them in the way that they
Mm-hmm.
need to be dealt.
Hmm.
So I'll moment of transparency. So like probably back in October, I realized, um, as most, social workers, counselors, therapists do at some point, we diagnose ourselves. And it took me forever. But I diagnosed myself with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was such an enlightening moment because I had never thought about the various experiences that I had in life as trauma. When I think of trauma, I think of things like, you know, violent rape or being robbed at gunpoint or Hurricane Katrina or, war torn, like extreme examples of trauma. Know, I hadn't thought about, witnessing my mom in physically abusive relationships as trauma. I hadn't thought about, me being in abusive relationships as trauma. I hadn't thought about certain decisions that I made in my youth as trauma, but they were traumatic experiences, but because I hadn't viewed them as trauma, I never quite dealt with them. I think, again, memes. Saw a meme that was like, just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean you're healed. Just
Mm.
because we don't mention it doesn't mean we've actually dealt with it. And so I think that's the important step in any of those examples, whether it's your family, your spouse, or your, non-family or friends. We have to deal with the things that have happened for us and to us, so that when we actually go into these relationships, we can have honest, authentic relationships. If I haven't dealt with my trauma and I'm trying to be married to you, 9 times out of 10, the things you say to me are going to trigger me. 9 times out of 10, you're going to say something to me and I'm going to respond to you because of what my daddy did 35 years ago versus what you just did
Wow.
minutes ago. If I have, you know what I'm saying? If I haven't dealt with, my uncle molested me that one time at the party, blah, blah, and then you want me to come to the family reunion and you think I'm just being uppity. Nah, I don't want to see him at the family reunion. But I haven't dealt with that. We haven't talked about that, those kind of things. If I haven't dealt with, I don't know, friendships that went bad or, for whatever reason, and now I'm an adult trying to come up with healthy, friendships with non-family, and I'm feeling like I'm being taken advantage of or treating like a dog because I haven't dealt with the trauma. And so none of those relationships, I'm not gonna say none. It's more difficult, in my opinion, for any of those relationships to be successful if you haven't actually dealt with that early trauma. Now I know I said a lot, so I'm gonna be quiet.
No, you listen, you touched on all of them, and dealing in a part of us dealing with it is a part of us being transparent and talking about it. That's how we deal with it, because we hear a lot of times, oh, time heals all. Not true.
Mm-hmm.
Time
Not at
does
all.
heal all, because just because time passed doesn't mean that it healed. The only thing time really does heal is cuts and wounds.
Right.
If you put Neosporin on it, it's gonna heal a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
But emotional things, mental things, experiences that we have with people, if we don't deal with it, we don't talk about it, it we're just avoiding it. And
Mm-hmm.
from me going to therapy, realizing that avoidance isn't a cure.
Right.
And so now, as you said, oh well, family members are getting together. Well, it's this one family member that's gonna be there. No, I'm good. And so now
Mm-hmm.
you actually avoiding everybody when your
Mm-hmm.
intention is to avoid that one person.
Right.
And I like how you said, really what we deem as trauma, but because we don't deem it as trauma, we don't look at it as it's hurting us.
Right.
And it's almost like we actually accept it when we don't
Mm-hmm.
actually say, oh, well, this did do something to me. I didn't like how this affected me. And we actually deal with it
Right.
instead of just saying, well, it happens to everybody, or, it's not that deep. I'll be all right. I'll be good. And that's not healthy for us because now, as you said, you try to get into a relationship with somebody, but I believe that we are
Mm-hmm.
all connected as people. So how I treat the last person that I was with, if I treated them good or bad, the next person that gets with them, they're going to be like, okay, I have a certain expectation of how this person is going to do because of what the last person did to me or for
Mm-hmm.
me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like how you're saying, us being transparent, one with ourselves first, and then being transparent with other people about how we feel or the experiences that we have, it really helps us to heal. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people always say, well, no, you need to heal from that. You need to let go. You need to forgive. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to forgive, but it ain't easy to forget. But it becomes easier
Not
to
at all.
forget when you deal with it, when you talk about it, when you
Yep.
have proper communication.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
right.
I like how you said that because that's so true in every single area because now you may have you have a friend who did you dirty. And because you had a friend that did you dirty, now when new people try to come into your life that may actually be beneficial for your life, you like, nah, I can't get too close because last time I got close to somebody, this is what they did to me.
Exactly.
So, it really just puts us in the mindset of, well, no, deal with it, talk about it. So you're not hindered now because what's happening is you're preventing anything good. And we talked about this on a live, like you're preventing, these memories that we have. The memories that we
Yes.
have now that we're holding on to, we're actually preventing, because we're holding on to certain memories, we're preventing new memories from coming in.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So how can something new come in if you are cluttered with all this old stuff?
Come on. That's right.
So
You're full of that hurt and that trauma, and there's no space. There's no room for those new memories, those good experience, those positive relationships. Because like you said, you're filtering all of that through the hurt and the pain and trauma. And it's not an accurate filter. Not at all.
mm, you filtering it. And okay, because you said you filtering it, it just makes me think like if you have say you have a filtration system. Well, if the filter is dirty, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is really going to come through because the filter is dirty. So if you got a car and the air filter is dirty, guess what? Now dirt, dirty fumes is still going to come inside the car because you
Mm-hmm.
didn't clean the filter. So
Right.
you have to actually clean the filter. You have to release those negative things, those traumas, those hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way that we can release them is actually identify them as something that it didn't make you feel good.
Right.
I like that. I like that. That's good. There you go again. Dropping them nuggets you didn't know that we needed. That's what you do. I love it. I love it. So, where can people find you, like to get, your services, try to get help from you? Now, let me ask this question. Do you coach people?
I do not formally coach people.
Okay.
I do, informally people DM me, or if they know me, they text me or call me or whatever. And I have toyed with the idea of getting back into some type of private practice. And so maybe I will. I don't know. You might just motivated me again. Um, but yeah, I'm totally, if people just want to DM me for right now, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. So on Instagram, it's Dr. underscore Shalay. So DR underscore SHALAI. They can find me on Facebook, Dr. Shalay, all one word, Williams. I mentioned the websites before, so aboutfacecollaborative.com or linktree/Dr. underscore Shalay. Yeah. So that's most. I think I have a YouTube channel. I don't post as regularly as I should probably on there. But yeah, if they follow me on Instagram, they'll see all the nuggets they didn't know they needed.
Now, where can people get your book at?
So if they go to either of those links, the About Face Collaborative or the link tree link is in my Instagram bio. If they go there and click on Arise Devotional Journal, they can order it there. Order either copy there.
Okay. Listen, I just want to say thank you for sharing your information, sharing to the world how to be transparent, how to hold on to their power, reclaim their power, be comfortable, how to claim confidence by actually speaking their truth and speaking their story and making people feel more comfortable of expressing themselves so they can be their authentic self.
Yes. That's right. That's right. That's the only way we can be our best you, is to be truthful, to be honest, to be authentic, and just, be whoever we are. And I'll just leave it with this: is so often we get in the habit of, you know, things have happened to us. We feel like things have happened to us. And eventually we get to the point of claiming that as our true identity. We'll say stuff like, well, that's just how I am. That's just what I do. But that's not who God made us to be. And we have to get back to our actual self. Our actual self is who God created us to be. And we can only get there if we deal with all this other stuff that has gone on in our life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now it's time for Ask Mr. Mindful Minute. So, what are some questions that you would like to ask Mr. Mindful himself?
So I would love to know how you feel like you, me, other people who are doing these kind of things on social media, how can we get more men to deal with trauma, mental health, mental wellness?
Well, the way to get more males to do it is for more people in general, males and females, create that space for them
Mm-hmm.
to be comfortable, because what happens is, as males we get put with that stigma. You should know what you want, you should know what you're doing. We get labeled with, well, if you don't know, then oh, it's something wrong with, you're supposed to have the answer. And so that creates a level of anxiety or pressure on men when they don't have the answer. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we know people, when we, normalize, it's okay if you don't have the answer. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
know everything, but you do have to have the mindset of saying, I don't know it, but I'm going to go and find out. And not putting
Mm-hmm.
that pressure there of, well, if you don't know, there's something wrong. Because a lot of times, as a male, when somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer to it, it makes you feel uncomfortable it makes you really feel uncomfortable about self. It makes you doubt who you are because
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I never even thought about that. I don't know. And so now when you say I don't know like that, you doubt yourself, and you're like, man, I don't even feel comfortable with saying I don't know like that. But I now feel bad for the fact that I gotta actually say I don't know. So when somebody
Mhm.
says to an individual, okay, look, even if you don't, so even when you ask the question, just say, hey, even if you don't know the answer, it's okay if you don't know the answer. I just want to know if you do have an answer.
Mhm.
So
Okay. I appreciate that. Um, so all my questions are going to be centered around that
that's
because I
fine.
feel like there are so many spaces for women, and you know, as you pointed out, and so I'm just curious, like what would you do? So in addition to letting them know it's okay that they don't know, how would you say we can create more of those spaces for them, for men, to be open and honest and transparent?
Not judging their answer and not responding to their answer out of emotion. Because the thing about it is, a lot of people don't realize when a male says his truth, that is his way of being vulnerable. He won't
Mm-hmm.
say that he's being vulnerable, but that's his way of being vulnerable by him being honest about a failing, a shortcoming, say a wrongful thought. And even in the space of spirituality, it's like, well, yeah, I know what the scriptures say. I know what I'm supposed to do, but this is how I feel. Oh, but
Mm-hmm.
this is what I want. And so now we have that confliction of what you know versus how
Mm-hmm.
you feel. And
Mm-hmm.
really letting them know that we all imperfect here and nobody is going to get it 100% right in these imperfect bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But because we have the idea of what should or should not happen, we now put that stigma of judgment. Even if we don't actually say, oh, I'm being judgy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have an
Mm-hmm.
idea of like, so like if somebody was to say, hey, I'm just, yeah, I went through something when I was a kid, I got touched. And you're like, oh, wow, automatically now I don't feel comfortable now. And so
Right.
now, because you didn't make me feel comfortable out of your response, I now have to say I can't open up now. So really creating that
Mm-hmm.
space of not judging from the response that we give. And it happens, men do it too. It's not like, oh, it's just something that women
Mm-hmm.
do. Men do it too, where a male might say to another male, yeah, man, something, X, Y, and Z happened to me. And they like, oh, well, oh, that's crazy. Or if that was me, I would have did. Well, we're not talking about with you. I'm telling you something about, but see, because that happens, that makes males feel inferior. And once the male starts to
Mm-hmm.
feel inferior, now he's not comfortable to actually expressing himself. Because a lot of times males will be comfortable with talking as long as they're not expressing their feelings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got to go deeper into that. What's the difference between talking and expressing their feelings?
So so talking is I can tell you all of this information. I can give you all of these different perspectives, but I don't actually tell you how those things make me feel.
Mm-hmm.
So now
Okay.
you'll have a situation where you'll think you know how I feel because of my perspective on it. But my
Mm-hmm.
perspective on it is not necessarily my feeling. So you can have where people say, well, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So now, once we actually start saying, okay, I'm not just asking for you to tell me your opinion about it, I want to know how you feel about it. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to actually be comfortable enough to say the difference because with men, we don't always, we'll tell you everything that we think you need to know. or we think you
Mm-hmm.
want to know. But
Mm-hmm.
until you actually say, no, I want to know how you feel, because as males, sometimes we need to be reassured. And once we get that reassurance of, well, no, I'm asking you this question and I really want to know how you feel. Because for men,
Mm-hmm.
we are in a society of we're not supposed to have feelings, or we shouldn't feel no type of
Mm-hmm.
way. Even if something happened to us, oh no, it's not that deep. Oh, man up.
Mm-hmm.
Stop girling.
Mm-hmm.
These are all things that
Mm-hmm.
people say, and men say it to other men. These are all things that people say to make a male feel inferior within himself. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, you just helped me. Thank you.
no problem. Any other questions?
I think that might be it.
All right. Well, as I always say, remember you have greatness within you. And my challenge to you and to everybody else is to remember to go and be great.
You're in control of how you feel. You're in control. You are the determining factor of your feelings. No one else can control how you feel. Remember, you're in control how you feel. So control your feelings.